Thank you, Howard. And yes, this is Jazz on My Mind, Coast to Coast. I'm Richard Blackwell. First, I'd like to welcome everyone as we begin our third season of broadcasting jazz from the jazz capital of the world, Wilmington, Delaware. And as usual, we will always present jazz performances and jazz chats with the legends, current and upcoming jazz stars. And plus, don't forget your weekly jazz events from coast to coast. Now, let me tell you what we have in store for you tonight. This evening on Jazz on My Mind, we're going to have some of our artists and musicians who are going to be performing on future episodes on Jazz on My Mind. Get ready for some of those gentlemen. They're coming up in just a few minutes. But first, I'd like to introduce my co-host, the one and only Mr. Larry Unthank, to Jazz on My Mind. Larry, good to see you again.
Hello, Richard. How are you?
All right. You know, you've been on the show before, and it's a pleasure to have you back, my friend.
It's always good to be here, promoting jazz here at Paradise Palms, the jazz capital of the world, Wilmington, Delaware.
You like that, huh?
I like that. Yeah, there's a lot of history here in Wilmington in terms of jazz and people that made it possible. Many, many stories here. Yeah.
Now, Larry, you and I met probably about a year ago.
Yes.
Jazz on My Mind relocated from Los Angeles to Delaware in June 2009.
Yes.
You and I have been very good friends since our meeting, and I have come not just only to admire you as a wonderful person, but an outstanding saxophonist. When you say Larry Unthank in Wilmington, Delaware, people know who you are.
Well, that's good to know. Hope they know they can't borrow any money. But that's good to know that people like what I do.
Yeah.
I've been here. This is my home. Studied with Boise and several others throughout my short career. And it's always a pleasure to be here at home, helping out with some of the younger cats that are coming up and exposing them to the great saxophone players and educators such as Dave Schiff, who we have here today.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen Dave in several years, and I'm very, very happy to see him.
Yeah, Dave will be coming on the show a little bit later because he's going to be performing on some of the future episodes. Now, your saxophone playing, where did you begin playing the saxophone? What age did you start?
Probably around 12. My initial instrument was a tuba.
Wow.
E-flat lap tuba. with no case. With no case.
Yeah.
And I carried that thing on the school bus every day, being ridiculed and tormented for years and years and years. But in that process, I learned pretty much all the saxophone solos for all the Motown tunes that were popular at the day.
Yeah.
So around 12, I had a very, very interesting band instructor who allowed me to take a single saxophone home for the summer. And that was it. So from that point on, I was a wannabe saxophone player. And still am.
Now, who were some of the people who influenced Larry Unthank when you were growing up? What was some of the music you listened to? Was there any jazz artists that you preferred as you were growing up?
Jazz is it's a broad term because when I started playing an instrument, jazz was the furthest thing from my mind. Most of the music that we listened to was R&B music. I grew up in upstate New York, so we didn't have an R&B station per se. There was WABC out of New York City, and you could catch it after about 9 o'clock where they come in clear. So that's where I got my initial introduction to what tunes were available. So jazz was not in the picture at that time. But it actually was, because later I found that anything you play, it's not that far away from jazz. It's a way that you look at it, and it's a way that you want to present it to your audience. So it actually morphs into entertainment as to whether it's jazz entertainment, is this R&B, you know. It's all hooked into jazz because of the blues.
Right.
That's how the blues
it's all the derivative of the time. So, but who are some of the people you listen to?
The first guy that knocked me out was Gary U.S. Bob.
Okay.
I heard a song called Quarter to Three.
Right.
Yakety Yak Sax with Daddy G. And I was floored. That was it. Got later on my trusty tuba.
Hey.
I can see that. I can see you with the tuba.
Oh yeah. I had a lot of fights over that tuba.
Now, Wilmington, Delaware is your home. You mentioned a name a few seconds ago, Boise Loud. A gentleman who, unless you were born and raised in Wilmington, Delaware, that name may go right over your head, but he is such a pivotal...
Well, not really.
Okay, tell me that.
I have a student, he's 11 years old, and somebody told his mother about the classroom. So when they finally, I was their second choice in terms of instructors, but they figured out that they couldn't find the classes on YouTube or anything like that. So when we started talking about it, I said, well, yeah, I'm one of the few guys that has this stuff. So they knew about Boise, and they knew about the classes without knowing me.
Now that's remarkable.
Because people are constantly looking. I see it all the time. What kind of stuff is this? And then people say, oh, it's only this, it's only that, it's only this. And this is all on like YouTube, and they really don't know. So that is a misconception that someone wouldn't know about Boise, because the more Boise had people coming from Europe over staying in boarding houses to study with him over on I think it was Broome Street. So Boise is getting around the world.
Well, let's talk about Boise a little bit, because he's such a big influence in your life, as well as thousands and thousands of other musicians. Boise, I understand, was an icon. He was one who was a disciplinarian. When he taught you how to play your instrument, there was no fooling around. Talk about Boise Loud a little bit.
Well, no, there was no fooling around while you were with him. That's for sure. Many of us, I'm sure, fooled around, myself included, and didn't really get, at the time, I'm trying to catch up now on stuff that many of my contemporaries took the time to learn back then. But Boise was taskmaster, but not in the sense of a disciplinarian. He left it up to you. He gave you tools, and he would look at you in the eye and say,
what you gonna do?
What you gonna do with this?
Right.
So he was a very, very loving man, and we all miss him immensely. But again, the greatest thing Boise did for me was simplify what music is about.
Yeah.
You know, simplify the blues. A lot of the music that we hear on the radio is blues structured, blues oriented. He taught me what the scale is about, and he taught me what time is about. And those are your major components to being a good musician and someone that understands and appreciates music and has a sense of what others are doing. Because none of this stuff is easy.
No, it's not.
You cannot wish this.
No.
You got to be in the trenches. And you got to be around good people like Dave Schiff and Boise
and Dexter Coons, Tony Smith,
and all these people that came up in this town, you know, that had a chance to be with the older guys who were Boise's contemporaries. These guys could play. These guys could really play. And not only that, Boise could think it in his mind and just write it down. And several times where he said, please, can you play this? And then I'd struggle to play it. And he said, no, like that. So, Boise changed my life. ever indebted
Yeah.
to Boise and Mrs. Boise. You
Yeah.
can't forget Mrs. Boise, because she kept everything straight.
Yeah. Well, I was privileged to see a video performance of Boise about 6 months ago. And after hearing his name for the last 2 years since I've been in Delaware, I was amazed. I mean, I could not take my eyes off of that set, watching him perform, because this is like, he was with us again. It was an amazing situation.
He was so cool. He was so cool in a time when old men were cool. We were around Boise, I guess, in early 20s. I guess Boise was in the 60s at the time. But, you know, at that point, you're just realizing how old men just will put on anything, will wear any kind of sock, you know, and you start getting to that point where you say, man, I'm going to be an old man soon, and I'm going to be looking like this. And then you go see Boise be like, chill out.
Doing his thing.
Doing his thing. Talking about, can you play this?
Well, you know, Larry, and looking at you and talking about you, what are you doing these days now? We know, because you've been on the show the last 2 seasons, and we know you have gone through a few things health-wise, but you're looking wonderful today, you're sounding great. No one in the audience will know what you have been through.
Well, that's good.
All I can say is that you are a miracle. And we have prayed and prayed for you, and it just warms my heart that you're sitting next to me.
Well,
At the beginning of our 3rd season, Larry Unthank is here with us, and that's a wonderful thing.
I'm still around.
Yeah. Now, you're going to stick around, speaking of being around, you're going to stick around, you're going to help me co-host, because coming up next, we've got a father and son team, 2 excellent trumpeters.
Excellent.
Gentlemen that you know, the father and son.
Yes, I do.
And we're going to introduce them to the Jazz of My Mind audience in just a couple of minutes. You're going to stick around and help me do the show tonight?
I'll be your Ed McMahon today.
Thank you so much. Stick around. Ladies and gentlemen, my main man, Mr. Larry Unthank on Jazz on My Mind. All right, stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Coming up, we're going to have a jazz chat with 2 great trumpeters. One is doing his thing, and the other one is up and coming. And we're going to stick around for that interview in just a couple of seconds. But before we do, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to get your pen and paper ready, because now it's time for the jazz events for the West Coast. And don't forget, we're going to be doing this each and every week, letting you know what's happening in the world of jazz from coast to coast. Let's begin on Thursday, September 29th through Saturday, October 1st. Jazz is going to be jamming at the Catalina Bar and Grill in Los Angeles, California. Now, during that time, it's going to be the Tyranny Sutton Jazz Band, featuring Kristen Jacobs, Trey Henry, Kevin Act, and Ray Brinker. That's going to be happening at the Catalina Bar and Grill. And also on Sunday, October 2nd, at the Catalina Bar and Grill, it's Louis Cruz Beltran and his Latin Jazz Ensemble. That's the Catalina Bar and Grill in Hollywood, California. For showtimes, call area code 323, and the number is 466-2210. And for more exciting jazz on the West Coast of Los Angeles, be sure to check out the World Stage. And they're located at 4344 Deckman Street in LA. That's where Jazz on My Mind first got its start in 2008. To find out what's happening at the World Stage, you can call 323-293-2451 for more information. And be sure to tell my good friend Matt Gibson I said hello. And let's go to the Midwest. For all of our viewers in the Midwest area, Chicago has an outstanding jazz club. and it's called Close Up 2. There's always some fantastic smooth jazz happening for events and showtime. All you got to do is call Close Up 2. Their number is area code 312-385-1111. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, for all live jazz events from coast to coast, all you have to do is log on to Jazz on My Mind. Now, everyone, let's welcome two fantastic trumpeters. As we said earlier, it's a fantastic father and son team doing their thing. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Saeed Abuwi and his son Saeed to Jazz on My Mind. Welcome, gentlemen. Good to see you. All right. You know, you two really warm my heart because, number one, yes, you are a father and son team. I mean, and I've heard you two play together, and I was totally blown away. First of all, let's begin with you, Saeed. Where did your trumpet playing begin? Where did this all start for you?
Basically I started when I was in elementary school. So when I was in 4th grade, at the age of 9, I started studying with Gerald Chambers under the watchful eye of Boise.
Now, if I can interject, you said that because Gerald Chambers is one of those fortunate individuals who was trained by Boise.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. My interest in trumpet started with my cousin Tony. He was playing for Howard High School back in the 70s, and I used to watch him and hear him all the time. And wow, you know, everybody said, "Wow, you look just like Tony." You know, and I want to be like, you know, be like my cousin Tony.
Right.
And I used to, you know, he'd go to school, or after school he would go to work. And that trumpet was sitting there, and thank God it was only 2 pieces instead of like a sax where you got to put the mouthpiece on and the top half and the bottom half or whatever. But the fortunate thing was I could play it. Maybe I might have been 7 or 8, and I used to pick it up and just blow into it, make it buzz, and you know, bang the valves down or whatever. But when it was time for me to, you know, the teacher said, "Do you want to play an instrument?" I said, "Yeah, I want to play trumpet." So it was fortunate that I was able to play trumpet, and under Boise and Gerald, I really took off, and Gerald really always used to say, you know, "Mr. Boise, listen to his tone, listen to his tone. He has great tone," and I just love it, you know.
So you were another musician here in the Delaware area who had the pleasure of meeting and working with Boise.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
it had to be an honor.
It was a great honor, and I tell you, I miss him today. And you know, when I think back on it, you know, Tony Smith, also studied with Tony Smith. I was also mentored with this great man over here,
Larry Unthank.
Larry Unthank. And I tell you one thing about Mr. Boise, when you say disciplinary, it wasn't that he was hard on us or hard on me, but I recall a time when I was supposed to be playing my scales, and he went upstairs. He was at the house on Bloom Street, and I just felt something to go somewhere else, and this man's ear. I don't, like today, I wouldn't know. I would have to ask, did he have perfect pitch? Okay, so he had perfect pitch.
No, he had absolute.
Use your mic.
He had absolute pitch. Perfect pitch is different than absolute. Absolute, you can tell somebody with a horn is the notes that a horn on a car is blowing. We got a couple of those guys around too. That is still around. But yeah, he had absolute pitch.
Wow.
And instead of working on hard scales, I would go to something that I was already familiar with and just run them up and down, be like, "Oh, he don't have a clue." But he would holler downstairs, and you know, that's not what I told you to practice.
Right.
You know, and I think about that, and I think about even today being mentored, you know, with the older jazz musicians, or say more mature musicians would turn around and would say things to me to the effect where what is this? You know, where do you want to go with that? You know, and it makes boys always challenge you to make you think. Instead of just giving you a multiple choice and you pick one and maybe that's the right one. No, he made it to the point where, tell me about that instrument. You know, I always think about when I first sat down with him, it's like, what you know about that instrument? I would say, that's the first valve, that's the second valve, this is my water key and things like that. But Boise, he was more so, okay, that's fine and dandy. What do you know about that horn? So basically the answer was, nothing.
Wow. That's deep. That's really heavy. Now, sitting next to you is a very fine gentleman, young man. Your son.
Yes.
Wonderful looking guy. And he is also an outstanding trumpeter.
Yes.
Where did you start? I know listening to your dad play, when did you decide you wanted to play the trumpet side?
It's too long ago to remember. But he told me.
How old are you now, if I can ask?
15.
You're 15. How long have you been playing?
3 or 4.
Wow, okay, all right. And was it your influence from your father that got you started, or what actually got you triggered in your mind that you wanted to play that trumpet?
Being so little, we'd probably seeing him play.
Yeah. It's a natural thing. Yeah. Now, how comfortable are you now? When I heard you, I'm telling you, you were absolutely out of sight. You two's performance together was amazing. You're getting real comfortable with stepping out in front of an audience and playing that horn. Let's talk about that a little bit. How is that for you? The first time you went out on stage.
First time, I just went up there, thought it just come.
Yeah.
And now, you gotta think about it, and it actually does just come.
Yeah.
It's easy to play.
What do you see going with your trumpet? Like, for instance, we talked about Boise, and then, of course, the great Clifford Brown, Tony Smith, Gerald Chavis. Do you have any aspirations to stay in the jazz vein, or do you see yourself going through another type of music? What do you see yourself going through?
Well,
you haven't really thought about it, huh?
yeah.
You're just doing your thing right now. Well, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And my hat goes off to you, Dad, because for that father and son relationship, you guys have a bond which you can carry on for the rest of your life. You know, a father can take his son and can put him under his wings, but if that son doesn't say, I want to do this, it's not going to happen. What do you think, Larry?
First, I want to. Did you guys just win a big contest here in Delaware?
Yes.
Delaware's Got Talent or something like that?
Yeah, it was a talent show, and the talent show was titled "Me and My Father Have Talent Too."
Amazing.
I believe this was the second year for that talent show. The first year, the guy, he called me. I wasn't really too much interested in it, and then when I sort of like found out about it. And it was very, this is a story, I'm trying to make it real short. But I told my son about it. I asked him if he wanted to do it. I told him the grand prize was $1,000. Okay, if we win $1,000, I would give you $500.
Wow.
I would split it half, 50-50. We played a tune called Blue Bossa. Blue Bossa is one of my favorite tunes because as a trumpet player, I like the way the song starts out, that it goes from the note up to a whole octave, and I like, you know, playing it, well, we call it piano, or real soft. I like to get it real soft. I like to get the other musicians to come down to my level and get them to break down. I'm teaching my son that now, how to work the mic with a band. You know, if the band is playing too loud and they can't hear you, then there's a problem. But other than that, getting back to the talent show, we played the song Blue Bossa. We rehearsed it for like a month and a half. Every time we rehearsed, I kept on to Saeed, like, Saeed, you can play better than that. I know you can solo all those changes better than that. We get to the sound check the day of the talent show, and I'm all shook up. I'm like, oh man, my stomach is like, oh, I don't know how this kid is going to play.
Yeah.
We do the sound check, we play over the melody. He solos first. He goes into a solo, he breaks into a James Brown lick. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm standing there listening to him, then he does whatever. The chord changes, major change, and he turns in, he goes into a Spectre Gadget.
This is all doing the performing.
No, this is the sound check.
Okay, all right.
This is sound check. I look at the guy, I said, okay, that's good, we're good. I go into the back, I said, where does this all come from? He said, Dad, I just want to show you up.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I'll give you some of that too. Yeah.
And one thing I do have to thank is Tony Smith. I have to thank Tony Smith, who was my teacher also, for basically keeping it competitive, because it's always competitive between me and Tony when we step up to the mic. But now we got my son involved. Not only my son is involved, but I have my daughter and my baby boy. My baby boy is 9, and my daughter is 12. She goes to Cap Calloway. They both go to Cap Calloway School of the Arts together.
They all play pretty good too, huh?
Wow, that's
I
amazing.
played with them.
You had the pleasure of playing with them there?
Well, we were to do a August quarterly gig, which got canceled by the hurricane.
Right.
But I did do a rehearsal and I was amazed. They all can play. Man, he's got a wall in their pocket.
That's absolutely wonderful. And when you mentioned Tony Smith, I mean, once again, so many wonderful, absolute talented people have come from this area. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, I call Wilmington, Delaware, the jazz capital of the world. And when I say that in all honesty, because it's amazing. When I came here, I had no idea what to expect. And I had been blown away by all of this talent.
I do have to say one thing. My daughter, she started out on flute. And Crystal Torres, if you're watching this, I want my $250. She's a trumpet player.
How did that come about?
She plays for Beyonce. But the thing, we did the 20th anniversary for the Clifford Brown Jazz Festival. Crystal Torres was there. She's a trumpet player. And my daughter was playing flute at the time. And Crystal Torres, she played so well, she even sang. And I mean, sang. And the good thing about it was that I wanted my daughter to play flute, but when she's seen that, now she's playing trumpet because of that. I got to thank Larry Unthank. I do have to thank him. I'm not going to unthank him, but I'm going to thank him. Him and a few others, because we did a jam session on a Sunday night, and it was a while back, and Larry got up there because there's other young musicians here in the city. Little Boot, if you're watching this, Vernon James Jr.
Yeah, another excellent musician. After his dad.
Yes, father and son combo as well. He was there. Another young cat named Perry Williams, alto saxophone player. And Larry got up there and educated. And I really felt what he was saying that night. And basically he was saying, you guys are not just musicians, you are entertainers first. Yeah. And my son, I always had a problem with my son, but I try not to get on him about his playing because I don't want to deter him from stop playing. Exactly. Or I don't want to have that Joe Jackson mentality on him. Right. But the thing that I really loved about what he was saying, and then he went into a song over rhythm changes, and he really worked out that night and was entertained. But my son would just stand still and play, wouldn't move or anything, wouldn't even smile. But he's so serious, and I love it. And I just have to thank Larry for that. And
no thanks needed.
Let me ask young Saeed, what do you think of Larry Unthank as a musician and as a mentor? Because I understand he has done a little mentoring for you as well. What do you think of Mr. Unthank?
Seeing him on stage, it was different.
You see where he leans and he gets into it, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is he a great mentor to you? Has he really helped you, influenced you in your playing, as well as becoming a personality as well?
Yes.
Well, that's beautiful, because that's what it's all about. The older generation has to pass it on down to the younger one. Go ahead, Larry.
It's about first of all having the vision that you are who you are, and you can actually do what you set out to do. But without that vision, it's not going to work. For a long time, if I'm doing a gig or whatever I'm doing, before I even step up to the plate, I've already seen I've always seen it. I've always seen what I do. And it's not about being cocky, it's about being confident and knowing that you have a genuine product, you have a genuine art. But my feeling is what I'm giving you. This is for real.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. And that's when people become entertainers, storytellers, as opposed to, hey, I can play 1,000 notes at one time.
Yeah.
How you like that?
Well, that's a lot of good influence.
I just want to piggyback on what he said, you know, storytellers. The other thing that I also enjoyed about Mr. Robert Lowry was the fact that, what are you trying to say? You know, you got to tell a story. You know, that was a major thing. I mean, I remember when I was his age and I used to go solo, I used to just want to just go, in other words, I would call it buck wild, but basically, Boise would turn around and say, I don't understand what you were trying to say. You know, what was you trying to say? You know, tell the story when you get up there to solo, and everybody else would understand what you're trying to say and they would feel it.
Well, you know, we've been talking about this father and son team, and we're going to have the opportunity to see you perform on an upcoming episode of Jazz on My Mind. In fact, I do believe October 26th, Saeed and his son Saeed will be here on Jazz on My Mind as our musical guest, and we're going to see the world, we're going to show the world why they won that father and son contest. Thank you both for being on the show. Saeed, thank you so much. Thank you, Saeed. We wish you the best, okay? Thank you for coming to Jazz, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. Coming up next, we're going to have a jazz chat with the jazz great pianist, Mr. Dave Schiff. It's coming up next on Jazz on My Mind. But before we talk to Dave, I want to let you know something about a great Jamaican Caribbean food restaurant in Wilmington, Delaware. If you are in the Wilmington, Delaware area and you're looking for some delicious Caribbean food, then you must check out the Paradise Palms, located at 901 North King, downtown Wilmington, Delaware. You got to check it out because the food here is so good. It's all because the head chef, Mr. Wendell, prepares all his food with the love of Jamaica. Dishes like jerk chicken, baked fish, greens, cabbage, red beans and rice, and so much more. So, when your taste buds say Caribbean, it's got to be the Paradise Palms. For more information, you can call Window at area code 302-377-2528. That number again is area code 302-377-2528. And don't forget, it's the Paradise Palms. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, we've got another musician who's going to be performing in upcoming episodes of Jazz on My Mind. Right now, I'd like for you to welcome pianist Mr. Dave Schiff to Jazz on My Mind. Come on over here real closer, man.
Thank you very much.
Let's try to use that other microphone. Yeah,
That's good. There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, first of all, I'm a saxophone player.
Sax, that's right. I'm sorry. That's a pianist. Sorry about that.
Okay.
And Dave, where are you from? Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Derby, Pennsylvania, but we moved to Wilmington when I was 2. So I lived here mostly.
This is home to you.
Yes, it is.
Did you have seen jazz evolve? Because back in the day, let's say back in the day, jazz was hot. Jazz was hopping here on the East Coast, especially in Wilmington, Delaware. I know a lot of musicians who would come up from Washington on their way to New York, like Dizzy Gillespie, Count Basie. They would stop and perform here in Wilmington, Delaware. Do you remember any of those days?
Yeah, I was back in the 60s when I was growing up. My father was Schiff, was very instrumental in the music in the 21 School District. And he started a jazz workshop at Wilmington Music School. And when the bands would come through, he somehow, I still don't understand how he did it today, but again, we'd bring these people into the Wilmington Music School and we'd have a jazz workshop for 2 weeks. And speaking of Boise Lowry, he was one of the instructors. And we brought in, my father brought in the whole Fat Jones Lewis band, Herbie Hancock, Pepper Adams, and I mean all these Wayne Andre, and all these like monster players, and they come and we get to hang out as students. Gerald Chavis was a student there, and we got to hang out with all these great players, and not only during the day, but you know they teach us improvisation, they teach us theory, tell stories. And it was like, oh, this is just great, you know. And then we go hear the band when they're coming through. So it was just amazing. And I was really fortunate because a lot of these guys would stay at my father's house. You know,
Wow.
so I was like 12, 13 years old, and I got to hang out with these guys. And that's I think that's the first time ever in my life I ever stayed up all night. Because these guys stay up all night, and it was just amazing.
Yeah. Now, your saxophone playing is outstanding. You've been playing for how long?
I've been playing for close to 45 years. Yeah.
Who were some of the people that influenced your playing?
Well,
When you started playing?
when I started playing, my father, of course, he was a saxophone
yeah.
player. Again, Boise Lowry, I studied with him. I was down at his house, and he was just amazing. You know, when your father teaches you, you pay attention. It's like, well, it's dad,
Yeah.
But with Boise, it was, I go to his house and just like what we were saying before, he'd say, well, okay, play this, and I play it, and he goes, well, you're playing it. No, say something. Each note is like a word. You're telling a story, and you have to feel each note. And the scale is like a dictionary. Each note is a word. You've got to put the words together to make something that makes sense.
Yeah.
And at that time I was like 14 years old. Okay, it was sort of hard.
Trying to understand what it's about.
Yeah. But then later in his life, because I still lived here, I ran into him and talked with him and stuff. And then him and Gerald Chavis wrote a book, and I'm fortunate enough to have one of those books. And I still go back and I practice and go through that, and it's still like, wow, this is just amazing. It's so deep.
Yeah. Now, our co-host for tonight, come on over here, man. Mr. Larry. You've been knowing this gentleman, Dave, for a long time. You guys got some stories together.
Oh yeah, we go back at least 20, 25 years.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Do you remember when you first met Dave, bro?
Actually, I don't remember what I had for lunch yesterday. But no, but I think it came from meeting at Christiana when it was down on 7th Street at the Old Sweets Church. And I think our conversation initially was, man, you're really, really good. And then it segued into, do you know someone who can repair my horn? And he said, yeah, I'm a repairman also. I'm a great horn player, and I'm also a repairman. So that, I believe, was our initial kickoff to us meeting, which is at least 25 years ago.
That's amazing. That
Since
is
then,
amazing.
Dave has repaired my horns. He actually sold me the horn that I have now, which is...
And it gave them.
And the game and they're both my pride and joy. So yes, and we've been good friends. He disappeared on me, so now he's back. I'm back.
Now, you are a great saxophonist. You've been doing a lot of things here in the Wilmington area. I know you've been appearing at the new jazz club called Nomads.
Yes, I was there a couple of weeks ago.
Now, the Nomad, ladies and gentlemen, if you're coming to the Wilmington, Delaware area, you got to stop by the Nomad, which is a very interesting jazz hangout. You can't call it a club, and you don't want to call it a bar, but some of the greatest jazz performances have been happening there since they opened their doors about 5 months ago.
Yeah, it's really nice because the people are there to listen. They appreciate what you're doing. They know what you're doing. And it's interesting because you walk in there and it's long and it's brick walls. I think I was told that it was built in the style of the old New York jazz.
It reminds me of New York and a lot of San Francisco.
Oh,
It reminds me of both of those areas.
Okay. Yeah, and it's a lot of fun, and people love what you're doing, and it's great.
Yeah.
And because I go on tour a lot, and I was out with down in Vegas and Frankie Avalon and Barry Manilow, And then next month I'm going to be in Atlantic City with Natalie Cole, and I did Aretha Franklin there a few months ago. And
So you've been busy.
yeah, it's really nice. I hooked up with an agent. I was fortunate to hook up with this agent.
And you had time to come on Jazz on My Mind.
Oh, I was looking forward to it. It was great. And I do Broadway shows. I just finished doing Chicago, which was really a lot of fun. And I like doing shows because a lot of the shows I'll play a little sax, so I can just play clarinet and flute and piccolo, and so it keeps my doubles up. You know?
Yeah.
And then, as Larry was saying, when I'm in sort of a slow season, I'm in an instrument repair shop, and I do repairs, for most of the school districts and people that stop by.
Yeah, that's absolutely wonderful. I mean, what you have done and what you're embarking upon is absolutely amazing. Because being able to...
I just want to mention, he's so humble. He was in the Navy band. The Navy band for 4 years?
20 years. This is the Commodore.
20.
Really? Yeah, and then Navy played the jazz ensemble.
Yeah, with the United States.
That's big time.
Yeah, that is big time.
Yeah, that's big time.
I mean, so growing up, now let me ask you, Dave, and you as well, Larry, if there are some youngsters watching this show and they want to learn how to play the saxophone, reading music is very crucial. Am I right? Am I wrong?
No.
Well, not to play, but to understand what you're doing and to be able to communicate with anyone else who's trying to use the same language that you're using. It's important that you read music. But you don't have to read music to play.
Yeah.
No, you got to, I mean, reading music, like Larry said, is important, but to play and to feel, what's in your soul and what's in your heart, that's what jazz is. Exactly. And that's what jazz is. It's a feeling. You're playing what you feel. And the next important thing is getting a sound. And sound's really important because when people are listening, you can be playing all these great notes and great ideas, but if your sound is funny, you're going to go.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of aspects to playing.
So I'm sitting here with two tremendous saxophone players, but I'm asking you a key question. What would be one of the first things you would tell someone who comes to you and say, I want to learn how to play the saxophone?
Learn to play the piano.
Hold that mic up.
Learn to play the piano.
Now, why is learning how to play the piano so important?
Because the piano, you got 88 keys that you're looking at. With a saxophone or a trumpet, you can only play one note at a time. So you cannot hear multiple notes, a chord, da, da, da. You can't hear all that at one time. You can hear da, 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 but you can't hear all 3 or 4 or 5 of those notes at the same time. That gives you an idea, a bigger picture of just playing the one note. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That's good as a scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. But if you need do, re, they all have their own channel.
Your own direction.
Right, so with the piano you can see all that. Bang, you can see it right there. It's 88 keys. You can see the combination. On a horn, you got to imagine it in your head. So if I see...
You might learn.
They have to imagine it in their head.
Yeah,
Well, it's like,
don't be shy.
I'm looking at, 4 different notes.
Yeah.
When I'm going to go to the piano and just play 4 notes.
Right.
And they all come out at the same time.
Now, what were you going to say?
Well, I say that another great tenor player out of Philadelphia, Larry Unthank.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him one time. He was doing a clinic, and he said exact same thing. He says, you got to play the piano. You got to see it here. You got to see it and understand it before it's here. And it's really important. And then the next thing is to pick somebody that you really like to listen to and emulate them. Listen to CDs now. In our day it was records, but in CDs, and just emulate it and try to copy the style, try to copy the notes, try to copy how they do it. And then eventually you don't want to play like them because they play like them. You want to develop your own style.
Exactly. Now, Dave, you're going to be coming on Jazz on My Mind in the future.
Yes.
October, I think, 6th to 12th.
12th, yes.
And you and your band, your group are going to come on and play some jazz for the audience.
Yes, we're looking forward to it. It's the same guys as Nomads. And
give us some of the names. Give us the names of the gentlemen in your group.
Well, we have Cook Harvey on bass, Cook, and Tom Palmer on drums.
Ooh, excellent drummer.
Yeah,
Excellent.
and a great piano player too.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite a few times with the great saxophonist. His name is escaping me right now, but it'll come to me. But I've seen Tom Palmer play quite a few times.
Yeah.
And he is so good.
Yeah, he studied with Don Blandon.
Really?
Yes.
And Don Blandon is another great musician in the city.
That's right.
An excellent instructor, excellent musician, and he's doing a lot of great things in jazz.
Oh yeah.
And that makes up your group?
Yes, and then either two piano players, Joe Holt or Dick Ingram. And I use those two guys.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's something to look forward to. On October 12th, it's going to be Dave Schiff and his group performing right here on Jazz on My Mind.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you for taking the time out. All right,
pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Schiff on Jazz on My Mind. Now, ladies and gentlemen, coming up, we've got a young man who's going to be performing live next week on Jazz on My Mind. He and his group called the Muzaholics are going to be performing live. So get ready, ladies and gentlemen. Our jazz chat with Nathan Jacobs is coming up next. But first, I hope you got that pen and paper handy, because we've got this week's jazz events for the East Coast. Now let's begin with tomorrow night, Thursday night. It's the Thursday Night Jazz Party live at the Basil Bar and Grill. Now the Basil is located in Wilmington, Delaware, and the address is 422 Delaware Avenue, right downtown inside the Sheraton Hotel. Now this week at the Basil, they will feature music by Tracy A. and the A-List. Once again, that's the Thursday Night Jazz Party at Basil Bar and Grill, located at 422 Delaware Avenue. And the jazz party begins at 8 o'clock and is hosted by yours truly. And each and every Sunday, it's the world-famous Jazz Brunch at Warm Daddy's, located at 1400 Columbus Avenue in Philadelphia. The food at Warm Daddy's is always delicious, and the jazz is out of sight. For event times, all you have to do is call Warm Daddy's at 215-462-2000. Once again, that's Warm Daddy's in Philadelphia. And it's jazz at its finest at the club we were just talking about, the Nomad Bar, located at 905 North Orange in Wilmington, Delaware. Now the jazz is hot each and every Friday and Saturday night at the Nomad. For more jazz information, you can reach the Nomad at area code 302-655-8800. That number again for the Nomad is 302-655-8800. And if you're looking for some great jazz on the radio, you can check out my good friend Fawnette as she plays some of the best straight-ahead jazz on radio station WPFW, which is 89.3 FM out of Washington, D.C. You can listen to Fawnette anywhere in the world by logging on to WPFW.org. She's on the radio from 2 until 5 a.m. every Monday morning. And if you want some jazz for a late Monday night, well, let me invite you to the Tony Williams Monday Night Jazz Jam Session. That happens every Monday night at the LaRose Social Club. Their address is 5531 Germantown Avenue in Philadelphia. The show times are from 6 until 11 p.m. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, to check out all the great jazz events from coast to coast. All you have to do is log on to jazzonmymind.com. Now everybody, let's welcome next week's musical guest, the band leader from the group, the Muzaholics. Let's welcome Nathan Jacobs to Jazz on My Mind. Nathan, welcome to the show. Come on over a little bit here. How's it going tonight, my man?
Everything's going great. Everything's going great.
You know what? We tried. We wanted to get you guys on last episode, but we weren't able to work our schedules. But I'm so pleased to have you coming on the show to perform next week with your jazz group, the Muzaholics. Let's talk about the Muzaholics a little bit. What's going on with that group? Because I've heard some great stuff. What's happening with the Muzaholics? Tell us a little bit about that group.
Sure. Thanks a lot. First, I want to say definitely thank you for having us on the show. Yeah. It's definitely an honor. I truly mean that.
Well, no, it's an honor to have you, because without you and all these other great musicians, we wouldn't have a show. So it's an honor to have you.
Thank you. The Muzaholics were actually based out of the Delaware area as well as Chester, Pennsylvania. I'm originally from Chester, Pennsylvania. And basically, the band consists of 5 guys, and I call them my covenant brothers. You know, we laugh together, we fight together, we eat together, we cry. We're all church musicians, so we all stem from the church. And really God gave me the vision to start the band Muzaholics back in 2006. And I was actually standing outside of a church. I just got done a gig, and I was standing outside of the church, and I never drank, like even in high school. And, well, you shouldn't drink in high school, but I never drank in high school and college.
That's a good point.
that's another story, right?
And another show.
But so you know, I was just standing there, and I was thinking, wow, I never drank, but you know, when I play music, it's almost like music is intoxicating, because I play and I give it my all. So you know, the name popped in my head, Muzaholics.
Wow.
You know, so from that point on, that's been the name of the band. And you know, we have again this 4 dynamic guys, including myself, Dante inline music, Johnson on keyboards. I mean, he's a very thorough keyboard player. And I like to call him chords, because he comes up with all kind of crazy chords and string arrangements. Then Jerry Stringer Smith on bass, and he can play the upright, the regular bass, and he's just a phenomenal bass player. He plays with a lot of other gospel groups within the area. And we also have Wendell Flow Music Floyd on guitar. I like to call him Lefty. He plays with his left hand, and the guy is always clean wherever he goes. excellent guitar player. Then we have Gilbert Elder Ham. He's an actual elder in the church, so his nickname is Elder as well. He's a very thorough, polished keyboard player. So again, we're a group of 5 guys that came together that wanted to get our message out. And our message is gospel, hip hop, rock, smooth jazz, traditional jazz, fusion jazz. And we pretty much craft jazz and everything that it is we play, because obviously everything that we play, one comes from God, but the inspiration of it is really, you know, just sitting down and playing from the heart. And as you know, playing from the heart is quote unquote jazz.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I've heard some of your music. Who writes your things? Do you compose, or do you write as well?
Actually, yeah, I actually write. We actually have a bunch of different material. We have 2 singles out right now on iTunes. Wherever you download your music, you can grab it at iTunes, CD Baby, Amazon.com. And basically, what I'll do is I'll compose some of the music, but again, all the guys are producers in their own right. So a lot of times we'll actually come together at rehearsals. I'll sit down and lay down the foundation of the drums. The bass player puts something to it, or Dante, he'll do something on the keys, and we vibe. We pretty much vibe off each other. That's kind of how I like it. You know, we all come together and create. So a lot of ideas stem, you know, from myself, but from everybody in the group. You know, they'll play something home or work on it in their own time, their own space, and they'll bring it to rehearsal, and we'll sit down, you know, and everybody puts their ideas to it, and we'll have a finished product from there.
It's a very unique sound, which of course the audience will get a chance to hear on next week's show. But your sound it grabs my ear. Actually, you and I were introduced by our audio engineer on Jazz on My Mind, Mr. Vincent Atkins, who is an outstanding bassist in his own right. And he said, you gotta check out my friend Nathan, because he is phenomenal and the group is bad. And when I heard your product, I'm like, this is some great stuff. You guys need to be at the top of the charts.
And you touched on a great point. Vincent Atkins, he was actually my high school band director.
Really?
And, you know, up until that point, I've always been just a church drummer. So, you know, all I had was the church chops, triplets, and, you know, all of that. I met Vincent Atkins, and he actually was my introduction to jazz. So he actually set me down. He taught me what a paradiddle was. You know, he taught me about how to actually swing and do the 2 and 4 and a hi-hat. Yeah. You know, how to add dynamics to my playing and how to really be musical. So, I mean, he took me under my wing. He actually taught my brother how to play the bass as well. So, I mean, he's very definitely here and close to my heart.
Well, you know, if you ever need a saxophonist, you've got two great ones on the show, Larry Unthank and also David Schiff. Larry, what do you think about what my man Nathan is doing? I don't know if you've heard any of the music, but his ideology of the music, what do you think about that?
I was able to talk to him a little bit, feel for what he does and what the group does. The originals are very interesting to me. Cover tunes, you know, cover tunes are great tunes. And a great tune is going to be around for 100 years. So there's not much you can do to do a cover tune better, whether it be gospel or R&B or hip-hop or whatever. But the interesting part about the original music is very enlightening because it's coming from a group of guys that are able to put their egos in their back pocket.
Right.
You know, because being a musician could be very egotistical.
Right, right.
And if you're not able to put your ego in your back pocket and collaborate also with known language, you know. So that's what's impressive to me. Actually, he gave me a card. I'm going to go online when I get home and listen to the 2 tunes that he has on. So I think he's on the right track. I'm just looking to hear the material. And he's a confident young man. So I know he believes he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Now, when we talk about jazz and what you gentlemen are doing, the Muzaholics, first of all, the spirit is leading you. Because when you come together with a bunch of music, with the different other individuals, you have to be on the same page. In order to do anything, whether it's baseball, which Larry and I know, whether it's music, everyone involved has to be on the same page. And I think through the grace of God that you and your fellow musicians have that spirit, and I see nothing but big things for you on the horizon.
Absolutely. That's the beautiful thing. I always tell people, although I'm the founder and the leader of the band, none of us go around saying, you know, it's all about me. We have that whole collective, collaborative experience. I mean, spirit. And I think that's really what's going to take us to the next level and actually separate us from some other bands, you know, kind of doing the same thing as well.
Yeah. Now, are the Muzaholics appearing anywhere in the tri-state area? Have you guys stepped out there and started doing appearances?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll actually be here again. Thanks to you, we'll be here next Wednesday for Jazz in My Mind. October 17th, we'll be hosting an evening. We like to call it the Muzaholics Experience. On October 17th, again at Warm Daddy's in Philadelphia. We just did a show last week, Starlight Ballroom in Philadelphia, and then we have some private events coming up as well, some weddings, things of that nature, weddings, banquets. And we do a whole lot of stuff. You know, we do a whole lot of stuff along those lines. But yeah, absolutely, it's all about getting our message out there. We actually sponsor our own event too. That's called the Analog Station. You know, one of the things we want to capture is obviously the digital sound that's real popular with our generation, the younger generation, you know, playing along with the tracks. But then, you know, taking it away from the tracks, kind of getting back to the grassroots of music. So we'll have our bass player pull out the upright, you know, I'll pull out the set, and we'll just play some real live, organic music as well. So.
When you started playing drums, I mean, there's been many, many great drummers. Max Roach, Wilbur Fletcher Jr. Was there anyone who influenced you when you started playing?
I think my first influence, I mean, my cousin, Kevin Worthy, actually taught me in church. My older brother, Stanley Jacobs, and Vincent Atkins showed me some stuff. But when I got a look at Buddy Rich, when I first saw...
And you know I was going to throw that name up. You can't talk about drummers without talking about Buddy Rich. Go ahead.
When I saw him, you know, just play, and Buddy Rich kind of came from the school I did. He wasn't somebody who grew up knowing the whole theory, you know, the technical aspect, being able to read and all of that at an early age. He just played naturally.
Did you know Buddy Rich never took a lesson in his life?
That I
Did you know that?
And I can see why he probably would have taught the teacher.
Buddy Rich started playing with pots and pans. This is the honest to God truth. He started playing with pots and pans in his house before his dad purchased his first set, and he never took a lesson.
It's amazing. So yeah, Buddy Rich was a huge influence for me. And then Dave Blackwell, he was a huge fusionistic influence for me. Dennis Chambers. But I love to swing, so I'll go back and listen to Jeff Tan Watts, Philly Joe Jones, a lot of the older cats. It was something about the way they played and expressed themselves, and one of the things that I grasped from that generation up to this time is always being able to keep the time. A lot of the older players, they always kept that 2 and 4 going, or 1 and 3, even while they were soloing. And a lot of great drummers today still can't master that technique. Tony Williams, there's so many of the great guys that have influenced me, and I still listen to them heavily today.
Larry, were you going to say something, my friend?
I was just going to say, a lot of guys can't swing, no matter how good they do rudiments or what they, the flashy drummer stuff. You can't swing. You just can't swing.
You can't do it.
And you ain't gonna be no help to nobody.
Yeah.
You're gonna be a pain in the behind.
And when you mentioned learning how to play, when I asked Larry and Dave, someone wanted to learn how to play their instrument. If someone wanted to learn how to play the drums, what would be one of the first things? Because a lot of kids, I think, they try to gravitate because the drums is something about that sound. If someone came up to you and wanted to learn, what would you say?
I would tell them the first thing you need to do, to learn the drums is learn the fundamentals in order to play the drums. So I even do it to the day. My son, he's actually 6 years old, and he plays the drums now. He plays the drums, guitar, and the bass, sings a little bit. But one of the things I do with him is I got him the biggest marching band drumsticks I could find, and I got a pillow in front of him. I told him before you can do all the real flashy stuff, it all starts here. Yeah. So, working on the fundamentals.
Rudiments and the rudiments.
Yeah, working on those rudiments. And then basically developing an ear. Being able to hear all styles of music, and being able to really communicate with everyone in the band. It's funny, a lot of greats can read, and I definitely push that. You want to learn all aspects of the instrument, but some of the greats like Buddy Rich and so many other drummers, they never took lessons. They don't know how to do all that, but they understand the dynamics and the mechanics behind it, so they can express themselves properly. So the first thing I would say is definitely start with the foundation. Learn the elements to get your hands right, which would be the big sticks, a pillow. Get a practice pad, and then also I would strongly encourage learning how to read. Because if you develop that habit at a young age, that will really take you further, than some other guys are able to go because they didn't have that skill set. So.
And that's beautiful. Now, once again, ladies and gentlemen, the Muzaholics are going to be here on this show next week, appearing live. And in the meantime, if you want to check out their music, where can people go right now to check the music out so they know what to expect next week?
Okay, great. And I actually want everybody, go download the singles, tell your friends, your family, even your enemies to go and download the single. You can go to iTunes and find us on there. Look us the Muzaholics. That's M-U-Z as in zebra, A-H-O-L-I-C-S. So you can go to iTunes, CD Baby, Amazon.com, all those places. And our website is www.reverbnation.com/the
Right, that's beautiful. Larry, anything you want to say to Nathan before we...
Good luck, and I'm looking forward to
Use that microphone, Larry. I'm a little...
Good luck, Nate, and just do what you do. Do what you do and keep doing.
All right.
He's a legend.
He's a legend. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Nathan Jacobs from the Muzaholics on Jazz. All right, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to check out our website for all the great jazz happenings from coast to coast. All you got to do is log on to our jazz site, which is jazzonmymind.com. We encourage you to log on to that website and become a member to our wonderful jazz site. Also, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, next week, we're going to have our first live performance of our new season. Next week, you get a chance to listen and watch Nathan Jacobs and the Muzaholics. That's all going to be happening next week. And we're also going to have as our special guest, Linda Sobieski from Wilmington, Delaware. She and her mother will be on this show. And her mom, well, she started jazz in Delaware back in the 50s. And they're going to be here next week to give you some historic moments from the city of Wilmington in jazz. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank the crew tonight. I want to thank Shellyn Handy. Also want to thank Bernard Parker, DP, and Mr. Vincent Atkins. On behalf of my guests tonight, Nathan Jacobs, my co-host Larry Unthank, Saeed, father and son, Saeed and Saeed, and David Schiff, I'm Richard Blackwell. And we want to thank each and every one of you for watching Jazz on My Mind.
Great show. Great show. Great show. Great show, guys. Good show.